Hey everyone, my name is Cedric, and today we're going to be pruning this tree for building clearance. There's a couple things you need to be made aware of whenever you're doing this kind of work. Because you're cutting limbs that are close to the building, there is a risk of damaging the building itself or possibly like gutters on top, and probably the most often that gets damaged is windows at the bottom. So whenever you're cutting anything big, you'll want to rig it out. And then anything small, you want to make sure you have a controlled cut, or you can control it with your hands if it's small enough. The worst thing you can do is have the limb fall on its brush side, because then it can bounce into the building or into a window. So what you want to do is either make it land flat or the limb to land on its butt end. I'll kind of demonstrate a couple of that while we go up in the tree and do our cuts themselves. And then the second thing you need to be made aware of is, since you're working around a building, there's usually going to be more foot traffic and pedestrians around. So you want to make sure your work zone is well established with cones at any kind of exits or doors where people could walk out, especially if it's right under the tree you're working in. And then you really want to have a groundsman with you at all time to make sure they are letting you know whenever someone enters the work zone. With that being said, let's get started. Okay, so we've inspected our gear and made sure it's safe enough to use. We've inspected the tree itself and decided it was safe to climb. And now we're going to go through the process of making a work plan. So we have building clearance, it's about 6 feet. So we identified one limb that was close to the chimney up there that needs to be cut. And then we're going to decide where the best tie-in point would be. So we're going to use the limb that's right above just the one limb we have to cut, because it's an easy shot to hit with the throw ball and it should take less time. And because the ascent we have is about 35 feet or so, we're going to use SRT because it's going to save us energy and it's going to be easier to get up to the limb. And we're going to do an aerial anchor. Even though a ground anchor would be fine here, we're going to use an aerial anchor because we can isolate the limb pretty easily in this situation, and I just don't have to worry about the other side of the rope coming down at all. And I also don't have to worry about putting twice my weight on the limb that I'm going to be using as a tie-in point. So I'm going to go ahead, throw the throw ball. Okay, we finally hit our shot. Now I'm going to go ahead, feed the rope through. I'm not going to take off the throw ball because the crotch is very wide and we're not going to get the throw ball stuck. We're a little far out on the limb, and it's going to be fine because we're going to use the aerial anchor, which lets us set it up without having to use a crotch, because it's going to cinch on itself. So this will be okay. All right, we're going to tie our alpine butterfly hitch. Now we run the rope right through. All the way up to the limb. All right. Now that we have our rope set, I'm going to go ahead and put on my gear. Okay, and we're going to need the rope wrench because we're doing SRT. Okay, we are ready to go. I already have my foot ascender on. Just gonna test my line a little more. You can always just try and shock load it with your weight. Okay. I'm gonna need my gloves too. All right, and up we go. You just take breaks as you need. Kind of rest your arms. We're almost there. Okay, as you can see, we've gotten to the limb and we're a little far out on the side of the limb, but that's okay because I actually want to cut it over here because I want to dodge this small tree below us. So it kind of works to our advantage. So I'm gonna go ahead, tie in my positioning lanyard. Gonna go up just a little higher so I'm not directly underneath it. Okay. As you can see, I'm not gonna be in the path at all of it falling. Now, a lot of times you're gonna have to decide if you wanna go out on the limb and cut off laterals, or if you wanna cut it all the way back to the trunk. It's just usually whatever is easier for you and whatever takes less time. So right now, it takes less time for me to cut the whole limb instead of going all the way out there and getting just the tips. So the goal is to make this land flat. So we're gonna do an undercut and then overcut. We wanna make sure our undercuts are really all around. Then if I cut on top, it should just snap off and lay flat. Okay, so headache. So that was pretty successful. It laid flat, just like we talked about earlier. You don't want it to land on the brush side, or else it's just gonna bounce and damage something. Okay, now we can complete our cut all the way back to the trunk. Headache? All right. Well, we've completed the limb we were after, and now we can start on our descent. Also, before you come down on any kind of building clearance or any pruning, it's a really good idea to get another opinion from the ground to make sure it's clear from the building, because you can't see everything from up here. Usually it looks like it may be, but they have a better perspective from the ground. So make sure you get a second opinion before you come down, or else you're gonna have to go all the way back up if you miss just one limb. And that's extremely frustrating. So now that we've cut the limb, all we have to do left is clean up the job site and we'll be finished. And it's just very important for you to know that tree work is already dangerous, and when you're doing building clearance, you're adding on more things you need to be aware of, more variables that can go wrong, because you can obviously damage the building, but more importantly, there's a greater risk of injuring any people on the ground. So you need to work smart and be careful. My name is Cedric, and I'll see you in the canopy. At least we have more time, right? I don't have just like 30 minutes. Not yet.
Oh yeah, the cards have a lot. There is a 30-minute cap on the camera, but
Let me play around with this. Maybe I can. Okay, that was just beautiful.